Okay guys, Mark here. This is part 4 of the hybrid Mollegabet pyramid bow build along. On Friday, or a couple of days ago, I was about to start reducing the belly of the bow. Now what you're seeing here is the back of the bow with the tip overlays kind of roughed out. And what I've done now is on both sides of the bow I've taken the bending limbs down from full thickness, as you can still see here in the static limb, down through the fades to a 1/2 inch thickness back up to the fade to the riser block. The lines are a little bit hard to see on this side, but you'll still see them on this side. So you can see where I drew the line, measured a 1/2 inch down along the length of the bending limb, and then connected basically where the wide points are in the bending limb to the tops of the fades where it's still full thickness at 3/4 inch down to 1/2 inch. And I did that with an orbital sander very gradually and was careful. So this is where you should get to next. And when you reach this point, the bow should floor tiller, meaning when you brace the bow against the floor, be careful to protect your horn nocks. You can push on the middle of the bow and the whole bow will flex, and this one does. I'm not going to do it right now just because I can't really get my hands on it, but it does. And it just starts to flex, and that means it's floor tillered. So you can basically start the tillering process now. The next step from here is, after you've got both sides done like this, is to soften the edges. I recommend you do this in advance, and that pretty much sets you up for success as you go through the tillering process. And I'll show you what that looks like, because the other limb I've already done it. So just like the other side, I took it down in the exact same way right to the lines, and then I softened these edges so these are a little bit rounded now. I took the static limb and I made it much more round, and I worked on my horn nocks on this side, sharpened them up, looks pretty slick, and put my temporary nocking point in for the string, for the tillering string, where that's going to go. So if you remember from the last video, the tip overlay was a little uneven in this area here. So I was hoping with the sanding that I'd be able to even it out nicely, and it did. It almost came out nice and symmetrical with the top. I think it looks pretty sharp. So then I just kind of drew on where I wanted the nock point go with pencil, and very carefully, using a chainsaw file, gradually got it to depth. So I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. So the next step for me will be to mirror this this job on this limb on the other side, and as well start shaping the handle before tillering. So what I've done now, the riser block hasn't changed at all, except for the edges being a little bit softer now since the last video. But I did draw out some rough cuts that I may make with handsaw or crafter saw, just to remove a bulk of material that I'd otherwise have to remove with the sander. And I drew that template using pencil on both sides. Excuse me. So that'll give me a guide so that I know that I'm doing it evenly. And once those cuts have been made, then I'll just go to work with the orbital sander and just kind of soften up the edges and get a good rough hand grip going. The other thing is the shaping of the arrow rest or shelf and sight window. Now it's kind of, you see some sanding marks in here. That's by no means even close to complete. But for a traditional bow to be able to shoot right off of here without using a manufactured arrow rest, you want a rounded shape to the arrow shelf as well as the sight window. And what that does is it allows the arrow that you're resting on the bow to be in as little contact with the wood as possible, so that you get a truer flight. And that's more or less what an arrow rest does. It just provides a very minute contact point between the arrow shaft and the bow itself, so that the bow doesn't influence the flight of the arrow. Of course, it still does a little bit, but it's a lot easier to adjust for when it's minor. So I've shaved the bow in. You can almost see that it's almost a true center shot. If I was shooting right off the shelf, if I put a manufactured arrow rest on there, it'll be a little bit more offset than that, and that's what I intend to do. So that's all that I've done for now. I'm going to continue that work. I'll do the riser, shape my handle, finish the softening of the bottom limb and horn nock, and get that all nice and neat, and hopefully do my best to mirror what I've done on the other side. And then I'll string it up to start tillering it, and I'll make an update video when I start that so you know what it looks like. So take care.